Welcome. You're listening to Behind the Business podcast.
Do you ever wonder what really happens behind a business?
Well, in this podcast, we explore the trials and tribulations of starting a business and being an entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jason Manarinter.
And I'm your co-host, David Liu. And this is Behind the Business.
Okay, well, let's get started. We'll go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode, I think 19. Is this 19? I don't even know. It's 18, 19. Pretty sure it's 19. We're actually in the new studio right now.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We have Sam Kwong here, and he's the first one to come in the new studio. Let's get it going. My name is Jason Manarinter, and I'm your host, Jason Manarinter.
And I'm your co-host, David Liu.
And we have Sam Kwong here. And Sam Kwong, we're going to talk about two businesses, Evolution Learning and
ClearMatch.
Yeah. You just told me.
No worries. Take some time. A lot of things going on.
And yeah, let's talk about that. Kind of explain what those two are, Sam.
Yeah. So why don't I walk you through? So, when I started Evolution Learning, this was in 2015, and I fell in love with it for a couple of reasons. One, education, super big passion of mine, and education is one of those things where you could never get enough education, and I wanted to be in that field for the long term. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't know what it was, I just knew it was education. Now, what Evolution Learning is it's actually started out in 2015 as a one-to-one specialized tutoring. And it gradually transformed into one where we provide mentorship services. But the whole vision around Evolution Learning is the vision of creating a world sustained by people working towards their passion. And what that really means is think of it when you're in high school. Mm-hmm. When you go into grade 12, or you're going into the whole, K to 12 education scene. Once grade 12 happens and you fall off, no one's really there to kind of say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? You kind of just literally, the way I look at it, you fall off the edge. Mm-hmm. Whereas Evolution Learning, where you actually step in, is you actually have those real live conversations. And the key word in that whole vision statement is the word sustained. What we're trying to do is we're trying to help students through tutoring and mentoring one-to-one so that they can come out into the real world and make real world decisions. And that's the whole philosophy around that. Now, a few years later, where, I think it's in my blood to not just start companies, but have companies that relate to who I am. And that's where ClearMatch Talent happened. And now I co-found it with a partner in the US as well. And ClearMatch Talent is providing not just consultation, but recruitment services for not just Silicon Valley, but North American companies, right? And typically we're looking at helping startup companies when it comes to recruiting. So that's kind of what I do now.
You're recruiting Canadian talent to the US or vice versa.
Yeah, we do a bit of both now. I think, obviously given the COVID situation, there's a lot less, crossing the borders, but most of the work is hiring for Silicon Valley startup companies, the unicorns, pre-IPO companies, really companies that are really trying to find, talent, especially in a changing environment now. And one of the things to even look at too now is that distributive workforce. So that's kind of keeping us busy because we're all learning as we're going. And 2020 is one of those years where you just, adapt and pretend like you know what you're doing.
Totally.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
So I just like to dumb things down for people that are listening. You have two businesses,
right?
And the first one, Evolution Learning. This is tutoring for people out of high school or in high school, or
yeah, it's within actually high school. So it's I would say K to 12, but really our core market right now is the junior high to high school, mm-hmm. right? So that's our main focus, and the reason why it is because that's when they start developing their sense of identity. They just don't get a platform to actually talk about the things that they do. Jason, Dave, think about when you were back in high school, right? In junior high. Talk about some of those stories, right? Are you guys the first to actually put your hands up and say, hey, I don't actually know what's going on? You kind of just get pushed and funneled through.
Yeah.
And then the whole parenting and all that comes through, right? But
you have no idea at that age. If I look back at grade 12, I thought I knew everything. You didn't know anything.
It's like survival of the fittest in there. It's like you're just like, fuck, am I gonna get these C's or D's or whatever?
Well,
like you're not really passionate about anything. You don't really know what you want to do in life. So it's like you don't really get any guidance from anybody other than your like sphere of influence, which is your friends, your parents, your siblings, and stuff like that.
And that was for me was bad influences because I was hanging out with Dave.
No, that's not true.
Or vice versa. Who knows?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, for sure. During, even grade 9, 12, in my grade 12 year, I made it happen where I dropped out of 2 classes and had half the afternoon off, right? And I did not know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't. And then, everyone's like, parents are like, go to school, be an accountant. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I hated it.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no guidance. There's no real true guidance, right?
Like
and that's where people think we're a tutoring company. And yes, although we started as one, I'd look at it as, some people classify, mentorship as life coaching. And yes, there's parts of that too. But I don't care what the nomenclature is. What we're really trying to do is allow every student to actually have a voice. Because, when you're young, your voice gets suppressed. When you start to speak, people look at you and be like, oh, you're in high school. What do you know? Even if they don't say that, they're probably thinking about that. Where I actually have podcasts or I have very intellectual conversations with people that are 14 years old. And I talk to some adults and I'm like, hey, so dickhead, you're 60 and you're still not making sense, right? But this 14-year-old has passion, has visions, but they're not projecting it out to you.
So you're talking with these people directly. Is that right?
Well, we have a team of tutors and mentors right now, so like about 15. So we all actually play a big part. Whereas for me right now, aside from just managing the whole business, I love being glued into the operations of the business, right? So to answer your question, I actually still tutor and mentor and teach myself.
What kind of topics are you guys mentoring and tutoring for right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our company now has branched off, not just tutoring, right? But there's 3 components. There's the tutoring side, there's the mentorship side. And the mentorship side is really, we have a post-secondary prep course and it's an online course and you can do it in person as well. And it's to walk through so that people really understand what you want to do, why you want to do it and how. Big kicker here is for parents, because if you're coming out of high school and you're randomly guessing, guess who is paying for that? The parents. And in Canada, we actually have it pretty lucky. 10 to 15,000 a year, still significant. My US counterparts, they're paying anywhere from 20 to 30,000 for a year, US dollars, right?
60 grand. Like my cousin was paying, I think, 60 grand a year as an out of state student.
Yeah.
And like, you better know what the fuck you're going to be doing if you're paying 60 grand a year. Like I have another cousin that I think he was out of state from Nevada going to LA and his tuition was 90 grand a year. And he dropped out because he didn't want to do that stuff that he was doing. Like that's fucking large.
School is very large, especially if you're not working, right?
Yeah, and it's not even the financial impact. It's the time, but more so than time and money, which I would argue is the 2 most valuable resources. There's this whole notion of, I find a lot of people going into careers or jobs because their parents or other people have dictated this is, what you should be doing, but they're not actually living happy. Yeah. Who doesn't want to make money, right? But are you actually waking up and saying like, I actually want to be a real estate agent because I enjoy doing this, right? Or I like being a teacher, right? And so thinking about those type of things, right? But, to add on, those are the 2 services. And then the third one now with Evolution Learning is more, we actually work with Asia Pacific because I actually used to teach in Taiwan and a little bit in Hong Kong as well. And what do people want to learn there? They want to learn English. And with a language, it's difficult to learn if you don't have the environment. And what we're trying to do there is, again, it still follows the philosophy of creating a world sustained by people working towards their passion. That whole independence aspect is, when you learn English, people teach you, there's a lot of tutoring companies that teach you, oh, hey, here are the nouns, here's the proverbs, yada, yada, right? And I'm like, okay, great. And how they make their money, and I'm calling them out here, is that they make their money because as long as you have an accent, they think your English is not perfect and you should keep signing up for hours. Where I'm saying, fuck that, like the best way to actually do it is think of you guys, right? So, Dave, Chinese background or Vietnamese background. What other languages do you guys speak?
Chinese, like I don't know a little bit of Viet, and I know a little bit of Mandarin.
Okay, great. And
Thai.
Okay,
Yeah.
Do you speak Thai perfectly?
No.
Okay, and okay, you don't speak the language perfectly. No. So it's the same.
I think I do. But when I'm there, when I'm there, like, is this guy like from Thailand or Canada? I have no idea.
Yeah, like, who is this creature? Yeah. But what my point here is that think of us learning languages. Like I speak Cantonese and Mandarin, and by no means is it perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But you don't have to be perfect to understand what sick fan means. Yeah. It's like eat rice.
What does that mean?
Eat rice.
Right? It's like eat rice.
It's like sick fan.
Oh, sick fan.
Right? It's eat rice. Yeah. But what I'm trying to get at is in Asia Pacific, the key is to be independent. And what we're trying to teach them there is the whole, look at Maslow's hierarchy, food, shelter, and clothing. Let's not look at the pinnacle at the top, right? Uh-huh. What we're trying to say is through our program here, as long as you can learn how to be independent and live anywhere in the world, you can do whatever you want. And that's what we try to do. Your English might not be perfect and you might still have an accent, no different than my Cantonese and Mandarin right now, but I can go and live in Asia.
So you could speak it.
And navigate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'll be very specific too. It's specific things like if I'm going to Asia right now, I have to get onto a plane. If my plane ticket is incorrect, I can navigate with language skills. Sure, I'll have an accent, but at least I know how to change that.
Totally.
In English, it's the same thing. Imagine, one of the exchange students, we're not doing that yet, but, that's kind of a longer term vision is if people are immigrating or moving, and some of these kids, they don't have their parents around them. And what's the most important thing for parents? It's knowing that their kids can be independent for the days that they're not here so that they can, navigate through making sure they have a roof over their head, the food, shelter, clothing that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's 3 different services. Yeah. And when you break it down, it's one for people from going to grade 12 to figure out what they want to do with their lives, right? And is that like, how long is that course, or like, how does that even look like? Like, let's say, hey, I'm grade 12 right now and I want to use your services. What does that look like? Because I still can't see how like your services.
Yeah, like let me help you, and let's take it a step back, right?
Yeah.
When you say helping high school students figure out their life, it kind of sounds fluffy. So let me correct that a little.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
What we do for high school students is, how tutoring
this is just catered to high school students.
This is just catered to high school students, 12, but there's, the whole 9 to 12, right? Aspect, as Dave mentioned there.
Yep.
The tutoring, that one's simple, right? You come in, you have chemistry, biology, whatever. That's
just
fine. Standard.
Got it. Yeah.
The whole mentorship side that gets fused into that is when people come and knock on our doors for our help, they say, hey, can you help us? Why? The trigger points are grades, teacher recommended, or they just have, bad habits. Mm-hmm. And where we come in is we say, hey, we can help you with grades. But I mean, you guys come from Asian backgrounds as well. What's more important? You want the A+. Why do you have 98? Why didn't you get 100? Why do you have 92? Why not 96?
Actually, for me, it's like, as long as you're passing the class. Yeah. My parents didn't really have standards for me, but I was lucky for that.
I did.
Yeah.
My parents just wanted me to be happy, I think, but I was very lucky. But go on, sorry.
But no, I guess what I'm trying to say here is that people, yes, they want grades, but we say, okay, why do you want those grades? Because we definitely help with that. Why do you want those grades? Well, I want them to get into a good school. Why do you want to get into a good school? Well, I want them to get a good job. Why do you want to get a good job? And then they stop there.
So you're acquiring.
Exactly. Yeah. So like we're trying to get in there and saying the reason why you want all this, again, let's tap back to the vision that I talked back about. The parents, and I've worked with hundreds, and this is probably a fact for you guys. You know, the parent council meetings that they have in high school, I went to every single one, and I sat in those sessions, and people looked at me and like, you're not a mom or a dad. Like, everyone there was like,
who are you?
or 50s. And I'm like, hey, I used to be an alumni in this, and hey, this is what I do. I actually just want to listen and hear out. But getting back to my point, after hearing all these parents, not just the parent councils, because when you work with students, you're really working with the parents, let's be honest, right? Like they're the ones that are paying for they're the ones signing the check, right?
For sure, yep.
And my point here is that being independent, again, the whole essence of evolution learning is, I don't care if you get 92% or 98%. What I do care about is that, and parents can echo this, is hopefully your parents will be around till you're 60, 70, 80, 90, or 100, but that's not realistic. But when they're no longer around, and even think about your kids when you eventually have kids, right? When you guys are no longer around, wouldn't you want that offspring to actually have the skills essential so that they can take care of themselves, right? To actually be fully independent. Food, shelter, clothing. Let's not worry about if they're going to get married or not, right? Let's kick that to the side. That they're not going to physically starve to death, right? That they can actually navigate and be like, hey, I know how to talk to people. Hey, I know how to take my skill set, throw it into the market, and then in exchange for compensation, so I can go to the grocery store to buy some food. And so, you know, I know that was a little bit long-winded to answer your question, but through the tutoring and the mentorship, what we're really trying to do is do just that, right? The tutoring side, we're like, hey, we'll help you with the grades, but we channel it in. That's why it might seem confusing as I'm explaining about it, but it's really just help them to become independent, whether it's through grades or whether it's through their, call it educational endeavors. But go ahead, back to you.
Kind of sounds like you're helping them guide through life at the early stages, figure out what the big picture looks like.
Yeah. And fully just hearing them out, because honestly, it's 500 plus students that we've actually worked with now. And when you think about it, most of the kids, they don't even, I'll talk about one that I'm actually working with right now. They don't even, it's not that they don't, that they're not smart. Usually sometimes people think, hey, they don't have grades, you know, they're not smart, right? It's the fact that they don't have an outlet, especially now with a distributive, you know, education, you know, call it online learning. They have even less time to talk to teachers. It's a many to one system, one teacher, 30 students. They don't have a lot of time. And for us to be there in a one-to-one capacity, some people ask us, why don't you do group? You'll make way more money doing that, right? And I'm like, no, this is not about making money. This is more just giving people a platform, kind of like what we're doing here. We have a close-knit group that's 1 to 3 people, and we actually talk real conversations. When you get 30 people in a class, the Daves, the Jasons, the Sams aren't going to put their hands up and be like, hey, I don't understand this, or hey, you know, this is what's been going on throughout the weeks, right? And this is why I'm struggling. And so that just, you know, hopefully that gives you some color into, you know, what it is that we do.
Yeah. It's like what Einstein said, like, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, because it's not meant to try and climb a tree, right? So you're really trying to find what these kids are passionate about, what they actually want to do in life, so that they can actually survive and thrive even after the parental guidance is no longer there.
I think I'm starting to understand more about it. Let's talk about evolution learning as a business now. Where did you come up with the name, and how did that get started?
Yeah, because your background's in accounting, right?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. He's an accountant by trade.
Yeah, so I'm an accountant by trade, CPA. Here's the thing, right? I know. It's like, what does this guy actually do? He's got a recruiting company, an educational company, he's an accountant. Right? But why don't I walk you guys back and, you know, tell you guys my life story here so that you guys have it for the record. I know. So here's the thing. Born and raised in Calgary, I've got 3 brothers, right? And my parents, they immigrated here. We have very humble beginnings, right? Like I've done it all from part-time jobs like snow sweeping to, you know, being a janitor. I don't know if you guys know this, like UFC, the whole Mac Hall. Like I used to clean that place up, right? And like the cafeteria, sweep it up. I've, you know, done, you know, dishwashing, all sorts of things. And I worked my way through, and my parents, you know, obviously were, you know, kind of, they're no fault of theirs, right? They're busy working, trying to put food on the table. And I just get funneled. And in Canada, I'm like, okay, I'm here. In high school, I got to the point where I was super confused because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what university is. And I wasn't the best kid. I'll be honest. I'd rather hang out with, like, I'm not here to say, I know it's kind of ironic. It's like, what, you started an educational company and you weren't an A+ student. It's like, yeah.
No, that's how usually it is though, right? That's
yeah. And, you know, when I was in high school, I felt like didn't have the right people to talk to. My parents were always at work. I'm not going to open up to you know, my brothers because like they were younger than me. And
are you the oldest?
I'm the second oldest.
Yeah.
And my oldest brother's, he's like 1 year apart. Is that. So he's going through the same shit I'm going through. Right.
And how old are you?
I am 30 now.
30. Okay.
Yeah. And so I got to the point where I'm just like, you don't see the dots until obviously I look back now. But in 2015, so again, I got carried away here, but going through my studies in high school, I landed in university, and Amanda, my wife, this is when I first met her, like 13 some years ago.
Wow, you guys been together that long?
I know. Well, it took 5 tries, but you know, let's not do the math anymore, right? So I was the reacher.
You guys have a baby coming on the way too.
Yeah,
so congratulations on that.
I know. So thank you. And that's I don't think evolution learning can prepare anyone for that, but I'll just kind of, you know, go off with it. But you know, in university, I was so confused.
You were in university for accounting?
No, I didn't even make it into accounting because my grades were shit.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I actually made it into general studies because that was the only thing that I could apply for. And when I applied, that's, again, I'm telling you all of these stories to answer the question in full of why I started evolution learning. But I got to the point where I did not know how university worked. I didn't know what it was. I actually looked over a friend and I was like, hey, Jonah, what are you taking or bubbling in here? And I just bubbled in and I submitted it. And, you know, some people might say, hey, like, where were your parents through all this and all this? I don't give them any shit because they were busy working, and you have 4 kids and they're all within 2 to 3 years apart, right? And so I went through that and I felt like I was suffocated. And evolution learning is really a testament to, you know, Amanda, my wife, because I felt like she was the one and only person that gave me that one-to-one time where she basically took this dipshit that like landed in general studies. And you guys both know her, Amanda, just like a great person overall, right? Don't tell her that, you know, enough, right? But she kind of said, hey, you've got a lot of, I don't know what she was referring to when she said skills, right? But she was like, hey, why don't you actually focus on your studies instead of hanging out with your friends, going to parties or, you know, doing all those type of things, right? But actually, why don't you channel some of that energy into something that you actually enjoy? And then that's where I had to fight my way through. She was doing accounting and I was like, okay, Amanda makes pretty good decisions in my eyes. And you guys know her, like the girl's pretty close to being a saint, right? And I said, okay, she's doing accounting, I'll do accounting, right? I'll do the same thing. And I worked through it all. But to answer your question, I went through the whole university route to be like, okay, I guess I'm going to get a good job now. And
so you at this time, you finished your accounting degree. Is that right?
I actually finished on time within 4 years because the last 2 years I finally buckled down. The first 2 years, I mean, with anyone's undergrad, you're just kind of you're partying more than you're studying. Your GPA is like whatever 2.8. Or
you're on academic probation every 2 months.
That was me.
That was me too.
I didn't get there, but
But good for you for finishing. I dropped out.
Yeah, I finished.
I was 3 years in.
Oh, and you did, and that's good that you can talk about it, right?
Oh,
because
it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. At that point, I realized my whole life was based around my parents' decision, and if I wasn't happy, I would resent them, and that was not fair. And that's when I like went that like personal development route. I was like, I just got to do me, right? So, like you finished.
Yeah, I finished the 4 years, and then that's where I got into my first couple jobs.
So what year is this?
I graduated in high school 08, and then I graduated in 4 years, so 2012. Okay. And then I was lucky enough to actually, get a job in oil and gas accounting before I graduated, which was really awesome.
Was this because weren't you living in San Francisco?
No, this comes after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this comes after. I was working at Worley Parsons, and then that was for a couple of years. But then I was like, what? This is the end all be all. Because I used to stare up at these big buildings, right, in our cities. And I was like, oh, I remember telling Amanda when we were interviewing, or people would come to our universities to interview. I'm like, I just want to wear a suit and sit up there. I'm there in my own room, and I'm like, this shit sucks. No offense to people that actually do 9 to 5. Some people.
Hey, it works for some people, and that's what I keep saying. It for some people that's what they like, but
steady.
It's tough being in an office.
Yeah, and then I ended up going around, and I got to to be truthful, that position didn't really feel right, and then
it wasn't fulfilling.
It wasn't fulfilling, and I actually went and took a lot of vacation, and then went through, and then obviously.
So how long were you at Worley Parsons?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah,
okay.
Year and a half, 2 years, and then the management changed, and then I just kind of left there. But I know I still have to answer that question, how did evolution learning even come about? And it was through 2 full-time jobs that I realized that here's the thing, every 2 weeks I got a paycheck, great, but my mind works a lot differently, and even more so differently now, right? Where I'm at now, I would say I'm very, very self-aware, so that's why I can talk about this. But going back, it wasn't even money, because when you think about it, when you're in high school or university, what's the biggest problem? You're fucking broke, right? You can't even afford the things you actually want unless your parents are paying for, all of your things, right? And so I was like, oh, I just want to make a bunch of money and have my independence. But then I realized I have this money and it's more than enough to live off of. Why am I still not happy? So I actually ended up in this position by volunteering, because I was actually a TA, after at the U of C. And this story...
What's a TA?
Teaching assistant.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a teaching assistant for an accounting class, and when I got asked, I was like, what, me, TA? Are you guys for real? But I think I did, okay in my last couple of years, and they got me back, and one of the students actually, you guys know BSD, right?
Yeah.
In the Bermuda Shorts Day, for the parties, and I remember on this day that I actually did a TA lesson, and then after, I got this note, and this note was like, hey, Sam, thank you, blah, blah, blah. It was just a very nice written note. And I was just like, what? You out of all people. And this is the first time where I opened this thing up. And I got this
note from a student.
From a student. Okay. It's not a love note.
Yeah. just clarifying. Clarifying.
It wasn't from Amanda.
Yeah, we'll turn it off. It wasn't from Amanda. But no, I got this note, and I honestly want to look her back up. I think her name is Leslie or something like that, right? Where I got this note, and I was like, why has no paycheck ever given me this feeling before? And then I started to dabble in, why am I not happy? Why am I not satisfied? And it was because
what feeling
of that
was that you got?
It's a feeling that someone's actually grateful for something that you've done, and what you've done doesn't feel like work, so you actually don't treat it as work. Because here's my big thing for people that are even listening, right? When you don't know what you're passionate about, that's fine. But if you don't go and try things, that's your problem, right? And for me, I was always looking at, if you can volunteer for something, you enjoy it. Now, obviously, you have to think about how to actually channel that in so that it can provide some fruit so that you can put food on the table. But I think in volunteering, I realized that my passion wasn't in accounting. It's in teaching. And don't get me wrong, the stuff I've learned in accounting are paying off for starting the multiple companies that I have. But what I really like to do is help, just literally help people. What I know, I teach it, and with no intention too, because when you get into the business arena, I get it, I'm one of the founders and I meet other people, right? Sometimes people's intention is hey, how can I do something with you so that I can get an expected return? But when you teach and you volunteer, you just pour your heart out and you have no expectation of return. And I think that was the point where I was like, okay, I'll start it up. And back then it was called Tutor Evolution, when we just did Tutor Evolution. And the name, it came from, when you look at evolution learning and even how the logo actually looks, we all start as monkeys, because your question was, how did you come up with the name?
Yeah. So after that note, is that when you decided to come up with Tutor Evolution?
No, it wasn't the note itself. That was the note that allowed me to explore more into what I enjoyed doing. So basically, starting with any company, it's not just sunshine and rainbows. When you talk to entrepreneurs and the ones that are like, oh, hey, my life is great, I live on a yacht and I just go and party, it's like, okay, you're not, like, you're full of shit, right?
Yeah.
But where this note allowed me to do is it allowed me to understand I've chosen the right industry.
So is that when you decided to start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what
when I started. Yeah. I mean, it started, I started it not because, I mean, she definitely contributed.
She ignited it.
She ignited,
yeah,
the fire within. But then, going through, it was because I enjoyed that, I volunteered even more. And this was after a 9-to-5 part-time job, right? Where I'm going around, running around libraries. Because in Calgary, you have to meet people at the library and you're running around. And I was like, why am I doing this all for free? But I'm so happy. And then after, I realized that.
So how long were you doing that for free?
The parent, like a good year.
Okay.
Like a good year. And then one of the parents was like, hey, you should actually start thinking about charging. And I'm like, it's ironic too, because I'm the accountant. I should be thinking about the dollars. But I was looking for fulfillment. Because I look at it this way. When you're born in Canada, you've already hit the jackpot, right? So
I agree 100%.
I already have all the things that I actually have. I've got the clothes, I've got whatever, that I need to eat. I don't need a lot. And so when I volunteered, I realized I really enjoy it. And that's when I started, Tutor Evolution. And from one student, I didn't even market at all. It was all referral based. And I feel like because of my passion and because of the energy, like, mind you, I laugh now because as I'm thinking about it, I'll tell you guys this. Imagine working at 7, because I started at 7:30. So I'm like going 7 o'clock to the office, and then I get off at about 4 or 5, and then that's right when school ends, and then I'm busting my ass basically from 6 to 9. But the end part was so much easier than the beginning part, right? Where I'm just like, yes, I was tired, but then, part of that.
I feel like in the evenings you were actually doing something you enjoyed, so it gave you more energy.
Yeah.
Because work is work, and then afterwards it's like a passion project.
For sure.
But the goal is, I think what you said is, once you're doing what you like, it's not work. Yeah. And that's where you get the energy comes.
But mind you still get tired though.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Because I was busting my ass on the weekends and all that, and built up to, a good 100-some students, right? Just by doing referral based and literally no marketing. Like, because I think with tutoring, no different than real estate, right? When you're good, people hear about you.
Yeah. So this was you working 6 to 9, and then you started charging it after a year. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say about 6 months, right? I wouldn't call it a year, but like 6 months to 8 months, right? Then I started to charge, and then that's where, things started to kick off. But then, life takes its way. And with Evolution Learning, I wasn't always based in Calgary, because like you brought up San Francisco, Amanda, we weren't, engaged or married at the time. I wasn't lying when I said it took 5 tries, right? She kept running away. And then I'm like, okay, well, you're in San Francisco. I've never been there before, but I was just like, hey, what the heck? Like,
is that why you moved there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I saw him down there.
Yeah.
I know. Dave was awesome. He actually helped me out because I forget it was the move or whatever, but he bought a piece of luggage because that's how rushed I was.
Yeah.
Like when I moved down there, like I literally, all I knew were 2 things. 1, Amanda was down there, and 2, I wanted to be with her.
Yeah.
And then everything else came out, right? So
yeah, because I saw when you were starting the evolution stuff, because we were talking about it.
Yeah.
And like if you wanted to have any mentoring about real estate stuff.
Yeah.
If any of the students wanted to actually hear about some real estate stuff, and if they wanted to get involved in that, then that would be a point of mentorship. But I don't know. We don't think we talked about it much after that.
Yeah, I think it was because I was just flying all over the world, and that's the thing. Starting a business, and I know the banner says "behind the business" behind me, right? And it's people don't understand that we still have lives, right? It's like, who doesn't like to, work and help more people? I think in your guys' arena, it's closing more deals and helping more people and putting roofs over their head. But then in my arena, it's helping students. And like, yes, I like that. But then you have to get life figured out. as well as your business figured out. And you got to find that perfect medium, right?
Were you in Taiwan before San Francisco?
Yeah, it was before. Yeah, it was before. And then, I was there actually during my undergrad for an exchange program. And then after I went back, because when Amanda actually went to San Francisco, she was going for her own personal reasons, and she's like, Sam, you're not coming. I'm going by myself. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Okay, I guess we're doing that. And then I was like, hey, what am I going to do, right? And then I was like, okay, I'll go back to Taiwan. And then that's where, one of the things she's left me with, and I know she's helped me so much, where the business that I have is a testament to her. And she's helped out a lot too, where she said one thing that was like, hey, just focus on your health. Right. And then I was like, okay. And then I went to Taiwan, and I was like, okay, I'll just lose a lot of weight. And I was overweight at the time. You guys knew me. I was like 230 or 40 chunky.
Yeah, you were working a lot, and eating really healthy. I remember just seeing.
Yeah, in Taiwan. Yeah.
You were talking while you were there.
Yeah. And I shed like 50 some odd pounds. Right. And then I was like, okay. And then, lo and behold, I don't think it's the weight that she took me back for, but it just all distance, makes the heart grow fonder, right? And that's kind of how we, connected again. And speaking about evolution learning, she's the other co-founder of it, and she does so much for the company, where the ideas, the innovations, how we help more students, how we do a better job, the processes, that's all her. Mm-hmm. She basically tells me what to do. I'm like, okay,
so you guys are partners, actually.
We're actually partners, yeah. Okay. So we're co-founders actually now, and yeah, she's definitely helped a lot. And I would say a lot of the results is actually driven by her.
That's sweet.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to get a clear image here. So
sure.
After a year, you're at university. You're teaching assistant, and then you start up the company with her 6 months in. Is that right?
No, she wasn't part of it at the beginning, because
okay.
That's when, when I say it took 5 times, there's a lot of times where I was like kind of on my own, right? And just doing my own thing. But it wasn't until she joined after that I'm like, hey, you know what? Think of evolution and learning as this. Because Amanda allowed me to, have that time one-on-one to actually be like, hey, here are your skills, here are your weaknesses, here's what you actually want to do, here's what you're good at, here's what you can channel in your strengths to, right? And here are your grades. She was the one who actually was able to tie it all in for me. I was like, hey, if she's able to do that for one person like myself, I can take this, and channel it in and help so many more people.
Oh, so what happened was she helped you with yourself, and then you use that strategy, for the students.
Yeah, and obviously when you say strategy, it's not the same. It's not a carbon copy, because the thing is, with people,
it's different for everyone.
Exactly, we're all made up of different DNAs, but because she was able to fully want to listen and hear me out, I told her more, and as I told her more, she was able to channel that in. And that's kind of really what it comes down to. Because the biggest problem in the educational world is that people are not being heard, and they're getting shoved into these careers that they don't even know about. And what happens when you don't know about it? You just make random decisions.
That's the Asian parents for you.
I'd say it's like, I argue that it's black parents, it's white parents, it's all different.
It's all parents.
It's all parents. Right?
Well, I think because they don't know also.
Yeah.
They especially, I don't know, immigrant parents, they're like, go to school, right? Go to school, be a doctor.
Be an engineer, be an accountant, right? Be a lawyer.
And do all these things, right? And so, that's really kind of how, sorry about that, I'll get closer to the mic here. That's really how, evolution learning, started. And
so evolution started, and then when did you quit your job and make that full transition? When did you realize you had something?
Because you were still doing accounting in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I was actually doing recruiting, and we'll talk about ClearMatch in a bit, which takes up a big bulk of my time now. So here's the thing, with evolution learning, there came a point where when you're looking at it as a business from the people outside in, it's not a profitable business. Why? Because my philosophy is when you're in education, the focus should be how do you increase your customer base so that people are getting more help. It's not what's my ROI. Do you need money to sustain the company? Yes, for sure. So when you look at it, it's break even. So I was actually living very nimble. All the money that I was getting from my full-time job, I'm feeding it so that more people could get helped. And that's the thing. When people say or hear, oh, Sam has his own business, whenever you hear that, there's a misconception that it's like, oh, this guy must be doing well. It's like, literally, I was like in the hole, right?
Yeah.
And I'm running around. And when I went to Taiwan, to tell you guys a bit more, I was making 50, when I quit my job, and this was at Ivanhoe, Cambridge, I quit my job as an analyst there. I quit my job and my mom was like, what the hell are you doing? Right? It was a downturn in the economy, still kind of is, but it's always been going down for a bit. And she's like, you have a job. Other people are getting laid off. Why are you doing this? And she knew I was getting paid like $15 an hour teaching randomly in Taiwan. Yeah. But I bring this up because that's what I mean about passion, and, you know, finding what you're actually interested in is way more important early on, and taking those risks because it pays off exponentially. Because when I was teaching for $15 an hour, I was the happiest that I've ever been independently. Obviously now I have Amanda. It's a different story. It's a different type of happiness. But I was teaching, running around for $15 an hour. I had the food that I needed, the shelter that I needed. Didn't need anything more. But that's what I was doing in Taiwan, was literally just teaching, because I didn't want to put in 4 years again to another university degree just so I could teach. So I went there, taught a boatload of students, and then that's where I went to San Francisco. To be a recruiter.
That's cool.
How would you say you've grown the business, though? Because it's been running for 5 years. And then how did you, all your businesses were referral based? Yeah,
I'll be very real. I think I ran it very terribly the first 5 years, because what do I know? I'm a 19-year-old when I started it, or 20 years old.
Oh, you were that young?
I was like, I think 23, 24. Yeah. I don't know. I call it a teen, like whatever, 21, 22, whatever. You're still a teen, right?
I think any business, though, even for us, at the first couple of years, it's and all the business, if you could make it past that, and get
you spend a month trying to figure out how to incorporate the business and where you go. Oh wait, you do it where you actually get your driver's license. Okay, right. But I'm just being honest, so the listeners can actually benefit from this podcast. Sure. Where I ran it very poorly. I asked people, hey, like I thought, oh, you just need to get people together to work on something, and then misaligned expectations were set. The business, if you actually look at it, it was enough to sustain one person. You didn't need a team of 4 or 5. There was too many cooks in the kitchen. And I apologize to the people that have actually put in time as well, right? And I say, hey, you know what? And they've all been paid out and things, right? But it's still, you're trying to figure it out, and those lessons taught me a lot, right? And they're still my friends today, where I felt when I'm actually getting it started, it was very poor. Because think of it this way, my life, and the whole Amanda situation happened, and you can't run a business if you're not boots on the ground. I mean, today, yes, you can, like virtually, if you're doing drop shipping or whatever, sure, right? But a tutoring company that requires you to be one-to-one, you can't go and fly to Taiwan and then go to San Francisco and start your company. So yes, it's been there for 5 years, but I would say it's barely just getting started, right? Sure. So I say that to be transparent. Don't let the time think that, hey, the company is just fully blown, right? I would say I finally started to work on it for real ever since I've been back a year and a half ago, right? Where now I have all the pieces that I need. I've got Amanda, I've got my experience from Taiwan, I've got, the recruiting experience that I actually have, and now I can actually put a little bit more time. And to make it even more transparent for you, and we can kind of divvy, given our time too, we can talk about, the recruiting company. I actually spend probably, it's great because I have Amanda now. So I only spend like 20 to 30% of my actual day-to-day. Like, let's look at it like I'm a battery, right? 100%. I probably put 20, to 30% in there, because I have a full team now. I have Amanda that actually, helps out a lot with this as well. And so that's, kind of where the shakeup or the makeup is.
It's really important to have the proper support, so that you can kind of focus on the things that you actually enjoy doing and what you are good at as well. Because like if you're trying to do everything, a part of the business, you can't really fully utilize your own potential, right? So it's really good to have a really good support team on your business, and allocate the time to focusing on the things that no one else can do.
I think that's something I learned just building a team, right? I think yeah, you've been in it for 5 years, but this is, I think,
Just getting started.
it's just getting started, right? And we just had someone who's been building a website for 5 years and just finally launched it, right? And that's what we're saying with these businesses. They take time to evolve. They take time to grow, and especially to where you want it to go now, right? What would you say to yourself though? Like, obviously you've learned a lot, and you sound more confident in the business and where it's at right now than probably 5 years ago. What would you say to yourself 5 years ago though about the business?
Yeah, what I would say about myself 5 years ago is really fully understand why I'm in this, right? I knew I was interested, but what I know now is I'm in it for the long run. And Jason, you were talking a lot about, hey, how many years, what's the time? And I challenge that in a way where I don't care how much time now, because of one or two reasons. One is that I chose to be in this for the long term. And so the day that I actually kick the bucket, I know that this is what I want myself to be known for. When people say known for, it's like, I don't care if people show up at my funeral or whatever. I want to personally know that I could help, even if I helped one more person than I did yesterday, then I could just lay there at rest, right? Who knows what happens to me there? I'll just be, laying and laughing.
You want to know that you had a legacy and an impact on the people that you have worked with and serviced. And
for myself, yeah. And for myself. And so that's why to even go further with education, you do it to make, like, at least for me, right? I chose to be in this for the long term. So I don't, honestly, regardless if it pays or not, I'll be doing this until, I die.
For sure.
Right? And so I look at it as it's my way of giving back. Now, I've realized, to, answer your question more here, I've realized that this is a company that's not going to be like $1 billion company. It's not going to be even, I would even say like 100 million. This might be a company. I wouldn't even say, hopefully, yeah, it breaks 1 million, right? Yeah. But for me, I don't care about the dollars. This is my way of giving back. Now, I realize that now I'm starting a family, monetary constraints are more important. And so now we can probably talk a little bit about ClearMatch, where recruiting is a company where it's more profitable. I also enjoy it. It helps people connect with careers, and I find it, now that's a fully functioning running business. Where you look at Evolution Learning, it's still a business. I would say it's a for-profit, non-profit company, if that makes sense. It's my way of actually giving back my time and channeling it in.
It's like your passion project.
For sure, yeah.
But a good way to get into the next business then, ClearMatch.
ClearMatch, yeah.
ClearMatch.
ClearMatch.
Yeah.
Talent.
ClearMatch Talent. So to me, that sounds like an agency.
Yeah, so it's an agency, and we provide, services, like I mentioned at the beginning, where it's like to Silicon Valley startups, but to also candidates that are looking for work. It started off as in the accounting and finance arena, but then, gradually what we're trying to do right now is we're actually trying to, so we hire for, 5 or 6 different departments, right? We've done sales, we've done technical recruiters, we've done accounting and finance, and engineers, right? And so now with one of my partners in the US, Matt, love the guy to death. Like, we just, we both worked together in SF, right? But then he started family and I did. And the life, I've always wanted to build was, as you mentioned, yes, I have a baby on the way, and I've always pictured myself like I want to be present. I don't want to be consumed by, everyone has their own goals. I know myself very, very well now, where I want to be present and I want to retire at 35 or honestly in the next couple of years. And when I say retire, people have a lot of misconceptions about what retirement is, whether it's laying on a beach or I want X million dollars. Like, I actually want to be retired as soon as I have my first kid, or even now, for example. And that's what I'm getting ready for. And when I say retired, it's making sure that I have enough and I have what I need and I'm fully present with whoever I am, whether it be with you guys on the podcast or whether it be with my family or my friends.
It sounds like you know exactly what you want for the next 5 years, right? With ClearMatch, what are you doing right now to get there? And what exactly, I just like to break it down. You're recruiting people for companies.
Yeah, so companies in the U.S.
Oh, yeah, in the U.S.
Exactly, yeah. So people actually come to us and say, hey, we need this person. And typically it's a specialized professional role, because otherwise why would they pay a 5-figure fee? Like they're not paying, $1 or $2 here. It's big percentage fees.
So someone's paying you to find them a job, is that right?
No, so the companies are looking for a specific role that they cannot fulfill in the city that they are in. So they're actually outsourcing it to another country to find someone that will fit the part for them.
Oh, and that's what you are.
Think of any company, right? Like it could be a public company or a startup company. The specialized roles are the software engineers. The specialized role, it could be from the CFO to the controller to the accounting manager to the senior accountant, right? They're looking for people that are specialized, so that, why are they using us is because when you're trying to find talent, it's very difficult, especially in types of markets where there's no two-person that is the same, right? And so they'll actually come to us with that experience to actually look out for, hey, these are the skill sets, these are the personas, these are the personalities, and then we go and find them.
And how do you find them?
Yeah, so we find them. Yeah, no, that's actually a good question. So we actually find them through a lot of, look at it as this way, right? You guys do business as well. It's outbound marketing to actually speak with the right people. Now, it's a relationship business. The more people you talk to, the more people you understand, the more people that you actually know that, hey, I can actually help you here, or no, I don't have these opportunities yet. However, if and when that right opportunity comes, I'll definitely let you know and circle back, right? And so recruiting is you guys are in real estate too. It's very, very similar to real estate, where, instead of, homes, right, you're really helping people find jobs, so they're candidates.
So you're finding people for people, essentially.
Yeah, we're finding people for companies, but people.
So a company is just going to call you up and be like, hey, Sam, we need this person. Find me this person and we'll pay you.
I'd love if they called me up. It'd be a very easy business. No different than, hey, I'm calling you up and, hey, I want to sell a home, right? Yeah. Typically, you have to do some marketing, right? Typically, you have to go and do some outbound or let people know and be aware that, hey, you can provide this service.
So you're actually reaching out to the companies?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you doing that? You're just sending them an email, letting them know? Like, how are you getting the business?
It's through relationships, right? So they're all people at the end of the day. During my time in San Francisco or in the recruiting world, I probably helped hundreds of people find jobs. And what do you know? Those people actually become hiring managers, and those are decision makers, and they will actually then use you. That's one big portion, right? Because here's the thing. There's recruiters that are transactional, no different than real estate. There's real estate agents that are transactional. Hey, I get this deal done, off to the next. I'm in a business where I don't care if it's ClearMatch, Evolution Learning, or whatever I do, or even us here. I look at every person that I interact with as a relationship. How can I help you? I don't care what you actually have to help me, but it's no expectation, right? And so when I set that, but then when I'm building up a business, it's like, hey, I see that you have this role open. Yeah, I want to help you. If this is not the right time, okay, great. But yeah, to your question, you have to build, what I do is I build relationships. I make sure that I can actually engage with them. I can be just a genuine person, because who wants to do business with a dickhead? When you make money, right? Think of the people that actually you sell homes for. It's their prized possession. If they thought Dave and Jason were dicks, they wouldn't give you,
That's going to be on the real. Who wants to do business with a dickhead?
Right?
It's true, though.
Yeah. Of course. No one. Yeah.
And there's a lot.
I'll
stop saying that word, but there's a lot of those around where I call it transactional business engagements.
That's exactly like real estate. There's realtors that are transactional and realtors that are relational.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you do that, like, people come back and, hey, it's like, put it this way, even if they
so that's what you've done to grow that business.
Yeah, that's what I've done, and it's not all me. Like I mentioned, my partner Matt, he's a powerhouse as well, right? He's got a lot of relationships, and for us,
how did you guys partner up if he lives in San Francisco?
They work together.
We work together, online, so we partner up there. Yeah.
Got it.
We met him. Yeah, I think you guys...
Did we meet him?
Yeah, on the phone.
Yeah. We did the
video. A Zoom. And it's with recruiting, what's interesting is that some people from the outside in, they look at it and be like, hey, Sam, like, how do you even do so much, right? Because these are two fully functioning businesses, right? And then I have my life to worry about. But the thing is, they have to understand where if you can piece it right, because everything's relative, right? Everything's relative to like what people see. Like they don't know the true, beholder is who's actually doing it is yourself, right? And I've structured it. When I say retiring at 35 or 30, it might seem aggressive for some people. They're like, hey, how did you do that, right? Especially because I never had a paycheck from my parents. I never had a single dollar from them, right? I'm able to do it in a way where I told myself, I don't need $1 billion. I don't even need $5 or $10 million. I need probably enough where it's like I'm hitting $1 million or $2 million where I can actually play around with the figures and volunteer and, do certain things and still make money through, recruiting and other initiatives. Heck, I'm still shoveling snow, for people. I don't know if you guys knew this, right? But it's, I shovel snow for people and that's my exercise so that, when gyms are closed, I have no excuse. I'm still going out there and shoveling snow, right? And so I'll hustle. Like I'm not afraid to work. And I think part of it is because I've washed toilets before. I've done dishwashing before. I'm not afraid. I don't care what people think, right? I'm just trying to live my own life and kind of figure that out. And as I'm doing it, when I say retire at 30 to 35, it's spending time and energy on the things I actually really enjoy and being able to not be in debt and be able to enjoy the fruits of that, right? And then that's kind of all it is. But then it's easy to speculate and be like, I want this, I want that. Oh, Elon Musk, he's on the S&P 500 now. He's got a $15 billion, like he made a $15 billion in a day. Yeah. But people don't know that he
how hard he worked.
Yeah, he worked his ass off. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But do I need to be at that state? No, and I'm okay with that, right? I actually just want to be present with the people that I'm with.
I think if you're present too, and that's a huge thing I keep telling people to actually be in the now and present with people.
Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. The power of now.
The power of now.
Yeah, you read that.
I think that's where you get to build those relationships inside the businesses also, right? I feel like you see a lot of people not being present, and especially nowadays, this social media, phones, whatever, right? But I think that comes back to the self-awareness also, and all of that. I feel like every podcast comes back to self-awareness. The more self-aware you are, the more happy you are, and the more
100%.
The more things you could do with your life.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to say this actually until this year, where I can actually say I'm okay not having, because I here's the thing, as most entrepreneurs or business people, they have high ambitions, high goals. They want to work hard. They're not afraid, and they want success. And success can come in many forms, right? It could be, I want to make boatloads of money. It could mean I want the life I want to live. It could be I don't want a boss, right? But I think for me, it's coming to terms with I know what is enough for me, and I know how I want to shape up my day to day. Think about it. When I wake up in the morning now, I'm very thankful, and I'm not here to say my life is the best, right? But it's okay with me, right? Where
that's all that matters.
I used to, button up my, getting back to the whole work, right? The 7 to 5 or 4, and then working, literally 18-hour days, right? Where I was a mess. I was overweight. I was downing. I couldn't even afford the Big Mac because I was too cheap for that. I was doing McDoubles, right, for $1.39. And I'm just downing it while I'm driving, and I'm falling asleep on the wheel sometimes. And it's bad, right? Because I stopped those behaviors, and I'm truthful about it. But now I'm okay with what I've built, and I'm okay with where it's at. But the key important thing is when I wake up in the morning, I'm able to wake up. I don't care if it's 7, 8, 9, or 10. I don't wake up past 9, to be honest, because I'm just one of those people. I wake up early. Yeah. But same. I can have breakfast with my wife. I can sit down and actually enjoy that. And that's the first thing that I do every single morning. And then I actually do exercise, and I give myself, the 30 minutes, and then I go into work. And when I work, it's planned out in a way where every single appointment, including this one today, I want to be here. I want to be present. I know why I'm here. And then it gets me out of the clout, because if I don't do that, a month ago, and I'll still have those shitty weeks.
Of course.
Where I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
What's going on? Am I going to have enough food for myself, the kid, Amanda? you know, and then you get into this whole cluster, right? But then you just say, hey, like snap out of it, like focus back on your core, right? And your core is like where you're putting your energy and time.
Time management is big.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like I didn't start using Google Calendar till like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And I used it after you.
Well, I want to ask you guys this, like, would you guys classify yourselves as the overly aggressive, or like, where do you guys want to be? Or do you guys find that you're super ambitious? You know, what's your, you know, endeavors?
I feel I'm pretty ambitious, but I feel like I also have work-life balance. Like, there's a lot of things that I enjoy to do, like doing. Like, I have a lot of hobbies and stuff like that. So I think a part of the hard work is also playing hard, right? So it's all about balance for me, and like why you know, burn so many hours of your day if you don't really have anything to you know, to come back to in your personal life, right?
Would you say you're happy with where you're at right now?
I'd say it's so, yeah.
You, Jason?
Absolutely. I think right now in my life, I've never been happier. I've learned so much over the past years about myself, about business, about just, you know, even this podcast was a creation out of COVID. And I was looking for something for like more fulfillment, right?
Right.
And like, this is the thing where I'm talking about, where it's like we're having a authentic conversation and we're all present.
For sure.
You know, which is very rare.
In no cell phones.
In the real world, right? In the real world, you're out there, people are on their cell phones talking, whatever, right? But yeah, I would say, to answer your question about like aggressive with business, and just where we are, I think right now I'm not as aggressive, but I'm not as aggressive, but I am.
Right.
I think because I'm more aware of myself and I know what I want, right? And obviously we're growing the team, right? And I'm learning to be someone bigger than who I was a year ago. I mean, I started off by myself, then partnered with Dave, and now, you know, we have a team, and then we have associates now. So joining a different company. So I think for me, it's like, further your education, further your self-awareness, and as long as you're growing and learning about yourself and becoming more self-aware about yourself, then you're more happier.
For sure.
100%. And I used to think I do everything myself, and that's where I didn't have that balance. You know, it's all me. But now I realize, hey, there's a lot of people that actually help you. So you could have that balance.
And also focus. Like, I find that, like, as long as you're committed to your goals and you're focused on what you're trying to achieve every day, then like whatever you're doing is always going to be the same. And like, that's what they talked about in Marcus Aurelius's book. Like, if he was to die today or tomorrow or 100 years from now or whatever, it wouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, he was doing what he was always going to be doing every day, because he was so focused. And if he died, it wouldn't matter, because he would have been living his life to the full potential at any of those times.
That's huge.
So, well, how do you find working with people now and like your partner? I know when me and Dave first started, it wasn't bad, but like we did things differently. But now we understand each other.
Like, how's it working with
how do you guys,
your partner and your wife? And
how do you make that work? Because I also work with my fiance too, right? Mel does a lot of stuff too. So how would you say, for someone listening that is having troubles with partnership or working with their significant other?
I would say, you know, the easy answer here is communication, right? And I'll give you two answers. The easy one's communication. Like, you literally have to talk to people and understand each other. Most of the times, and even for me, when I think of the first time you ever go into any partnership, it's probably some group project that you're working on, right? And you're like, oh, this guy's doing nothing, but I'm not going to say anything. And this guy's just trying to get a free ride, right? That's kind of how it works, but no one says anything. And then this poison builds up, and it boils, and then eventually it blows. And when it blows, people just curse at each other. And when my biggest rule is, when you'll see this a lot, right? When someone's screaming, or I've learned and I see and I witness that they've lost their cool, I don't even talk. I actually literally just leave the room, and I'm like, okay,
it's because they're gone.
Done. They're gone.
Yeah.
So I'd say
They call that the amygdala hijack. Like you turn into like
the Amygdala Hijack.
Yeah. Your brain gets hijacked and you can't think straight.
For sure. And then you get two people and one yells, the other yells louder, and then you're screaming.
No one's listening.
Solve any.
My parents, perfect example of this. When I was growing up, it's like, and then you end up realizing that all they're really arguing about is if they should use a fork or chopsticks to actually share the dish or something stupid like that, right? And it's like, okay. But yeah, the easy answer is communication.
I agree.
But with any partnership, though, where I find it being a successful partnership is you first have to know yourself, and you have to know the rules to, there's mistakes that you can make, and there's like mistakes that you don't make ever, right? And it's like the bro code, like don't sleep with my girl, and don't screw around with my friends, and we're cool. Everything else I can forgive you, right? And so I think with a successful partnership, it really comes down to a friendship, right? And with myself and Amanda, or myself and Matt. And when I say partnership, it's not just the owners of the company, it's everyone that's involved, including us here, right? Is what makes a successful relationship. It's first knowing yourself. It's knowing that everything that you do, and I'm still working on this, so I'm not, claiming myself as that saint, but what I'm trying to do is every relationship that I have, I'm thinking in the best interest for the other party. And when something comes up, then you're not just protecting your own interests. Because what happens in a partnership is, here's a problem. How does it affect me? How does it affect you? How does it affect my wallet? How does it affect your wallet? How does it affect my ego and my pride? And then you just start putting flags in the sand like, oh, why are you getting a bigger cut? Why am I getting less? Right? But then now it's everything that we actually have. We go back to, let's communicate about it. We have those ground rules. But more importantly, when something happens, I actually say, hey, it's actually probably your best interest to do this, this, and this. Is that the best way to negotiate? Probably not. But with my partners, I want to know that they know I'm looking out for them. And not just for my own personal interests or gains, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it's all about the community. And I think the big thing for us was we created a vision for what we want to achieve as a group, as a team. And it's essentially the fundamental rules of what we want to achieve. So everything that we do is geared towards this vision. So if we're outside of that scope of that, then we need to revisit it and also realign to back to what our vision was. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand when they're in a business, is that they just go into it and don't have any ground rules laid with the business. So I think that's very important.
The key though is intention. Though it's really intention, no matter what you do, regardless if it's a partnership or when you're associating with people. When you have the wrong intentions, like for me, yes, I'm only 30, but I can very easily look at someone and by their actions, not by what they say, but actually what they do. And I'm like, do you hurt people? Do you harm people? Are you positive or negative energy? If you're positive, great, let's talk more. If you're negative, I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'll actually call it out and be like, hey, I don't, like this part of it. And if you continue, that's your own, thing. And I stay back because I've got enough headaches and problems, quite frankly. Right. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Right. But I think the intention is actually key, because let's be real, there's enough cake for everyone to eat. Like in this world, there's so many ways to make money. There's so many ways to build businesses these days. Yes, I know I'm saying this during COVID, but there still is. If you want to throw an ad up and shovel snow, or if you want to join me, feel free. You don't need, at least in my eyes, you don't need a lot to live. The people that actually say they need more than they do is because they have scarcity mentality. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before. You guys probably have.
Of course.
It's like, hey, you get, $1, I need 10. You get 10, you want 50. You get 50, you want 100, 1,000, a million, yada, yada. But there's enough where, think about it, look at the clothes that we have here. This is enough for us to, mind you, some people are like, why are you not going to shower? But this is enough for us to live for a year. Mind you, we've got our water here. And as long as we have food and sure, You know, like you don't need all that much. Like this mic that I'm using could feed me for a month.
Yeah.
Right?
I go on my
Perspective.
splurges. Yeah.
Right?
Business expenses.
Yeah.
Well, my question, was the team communication.
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. And I think that's kind of where me and Dave got present with when we created like the intention of the business, right? It took us a year or so to do that, and I think that's where actually our relationship got better within the business. So totally agree with you on communication, because without communication, and so many people do this, they hold things in. That turns into resentment, then grudges, and it just comes out in a very bad way. So just communicating, I would say, definitely is.
And it's real communication too, because when you say communicate, it's not just yapping your lips, right?
It's like in depth, like what's wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
That's why when I converse with people, I'm like, here's the thing: you could ask them about the weather, or you could ask them, it's like, hey, you know, what were some of the things that you went through? What were your highs? What were your lows of the week? And then actually have real conversations. It's easier to say, hey, what's up? How's it going? How's things? Good. You? Good. Great.
Yeah.
Small talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's those big talk conversations, right? And especially problems when they come up, talk about it.
What would you say is like the hardest thing you've had to go through with your businesses?
That's a good question. Give me a couple seconds here. I'd say I'll say one for each, right? Just to make sure that there's a lot of value in this. With evolution learning, one of the things I would say is I overcommit myself, and I'm a very passionate. I would like to think that I'm very passionate about things, right? And sometimes when you don't know what you're trying to do and you have that passion, you run into walls. And when you run into walls, your whole team runs into walls, right? And I would say that, you know, at Evolution Learning was a big difficulty, because a lot of times it's like, you know, you're steering this ship and people should know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, and at the time I didn't, right? Because I'm like, just, you know, I'm figuring out my life as is, right? Then that's difficult, you know? And with ClearMatch, you know, I think the big difficulty there is it's hard to run a remote business, but if your relationship is good, then it runs well. But I would say that the difficulty, you know, with that is we're doing quite well in it. And I would think that, you know, here's the thing, the more money you make, the more problems there are, right? And it's just like
more money, more problem.
It's just like all of a sudden you care more, and it's like, wait a sec, our job has not changed, right? But then it's like you get carried away with like, oh, what do we do here? What do we do there? You know, what's this? What's that? Do I have enough? Right? Then it's like, you just have to taper back. So, you know, I think that's probably a couple things where it's like you really have to know yourself well, and you catch yourself, because you're not going to have all good days and bad days, right? But when you have, even when you're thinking about it, and I'd say even in your partnership as well, right? Where it's like, you know, I was walking in when I say this, like, because when you're a business owner, your whole life is a business in itself, right? And if you have a bad day, everything bleeds into the next. Like if we had a crappy podcast episode, it'd probably bleed into the rest of the night, right? And so I think one of the big things is actually just knowing, you know, again, your intentions, but also going back and being like, hey, if you screwed up, own up to it, right? If you didn't, and the other person did, just be like, hey, I didn't really appreciate, you know, this, or hey, I have some feedback for you, right? And then if they change or not, who cares? You already gave them the feedback. It's up to them if they want to change.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Before we wrap this up, I'd just like to say, ask, is there any last things you want to say about life, about business, about your personal, that you want to share?
I would say, regardless if you're starting a business or you're not, just be a good human being, you know, like be good to the people that are not just around you, but to, you know, random strangers, right? Because I find that when I first started, I thought being a business meant like, think of the successful business people, right? Sometimes you see on television, they're like, oh, you got to make sure you close every deal, right? You got to make sure you don't leave anything on the table, right? And no better way to tie back dickhead, right? Where you meet a lot of those. And the important thing is that you can go to bed at night knowing that you did business, you did it well, you did it with good intentions, and you're making and leaving the world better than what it was before. And so with evolution learning or clear match, I would like to think that, regardless if it's education or if it's recruiting or whatever it is that you do, you know that you're leaving positive energy behind. And you know that you're actually, you look back and you're being your authentic self, right? And so I think that's what success is. I don't think success is if you're, going to be, an S&P 500 company, or if you're making, like I when I look at people, I don't care if you're wealthy or not, to be honest, because of how I'm brought up. I care more about the fact that you look at the caretaker and the janitor equally as high ranking as the CEO of the company. And you're able to have those conversations where you're just literally being a good human being, right? And business should come your way.
Yeah. It's like character is how you treat people that can do nothing for you. So like you want to treat people all equally across the board. Like you said, whether it's the janitor or the CEO of a company. And that's how true character is.
Totally.
Yeah, it definitely is difficult, like when I say that, right? Because we judge, right? Like no matter what, people say, hey, don't judge a book by its cover, right? But it's like people do judge, right? But the thing is, if they do, right, then it's your job to make sure that, hey, as long as you live, your best version of yourself and you're setting, by that example, you're going to meet, a lot, there's 7 billion people in the world, right? Yeah. They're not all saints.
For sure. And, I realized that people will always judge you whether you're at the bottom or at the top. And that's why you got to just keep your own path, right? They're going to judge you no matter what you do or where you're at in your life. And that's, for me, what makes it easy to basically just do what I want to do, right? Because, they're going to judge you regardless, Doesn't matter where you are in your life. So, well... Anything else, Sam? Before
No, I think this is a really great episode, and I actually want to thank you guys, and I think you guys are doing a great thing. So thank you for bringing me on, and hopefully, I censor the things that I've said that were incorrect. But no, this was actually a lot of fun, and thank you guys for having me there.
So how can they find you guys for the Tutor Evolution or the Evolution Tutoring and the Clear
Match, Clear Match
talents.
Yeah, no problem. So I think for any parents or even students, right, when they are in need and they actually, regardless if you want tutoring or not, just reach out to us and we'll actually help pro bono, right, to actually set things straight. So you can reach us at, www.evolutionlearning.org or, our Instagram is evolution.learning. You could also find us on Facebook, same thing, Evolution Learning. And then when it comes to, a job, a lot of my friends actually that, even when companies aren't hiring, they can actually just reach out. So LinkedIn, Sam Kwong, or you can find me at sam@clearmatchtalent.com. And honestly, even if it's just looking through a resume, I know it's a very, very tough time now. I talk to single moms, right, that are trying to find jobs. I talk to a lot of people that, actually have the biggest difficulty finding work, right? So if anyone needs a hand there, I'm just happy to help in open arms.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to Behind the Business podcast.
Remember, you can find us on all social media outlets and reach out to us if you have any questions. And remember,
everybody, enjoy their life. Don't wait. Just do.